We have a fantastic panel lined up for you guys, and we have the unique distinction of being between you and lunch, but we'll try to keep it as entertaining as possible. Sorry, like I said, we have an extremely amazing panel who's going to come here to share their thoughts about retention and how they look about customer engagement. First up, we have Mr. Hamad Malik, who is the CMO of Stars Play. Hamad has over 25 years experience in marketing, and as I mentioned, he's currently the CMO at Stars Play, which is a subscription and video on demand service that streams to 21 countries in the Middle East and MENA as well as Pakistan. I'm sure if you guys are from this region, then you're probably customers of this service. And before this, he was also part of companies like LG, OSN, and others. Please welcome Mr. Hamad Malik to the stage. Next up, we have Mr. Aymane Sennoussi, who is the head of product and growth at Kitab Swati. Aymane is a product and growth enthusiast who lives in the intersection of product marketing and data, and he believes in value-driven companies. Before this, he worked with the Norwegian giant, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce this, I'll ask Aymane only to pronounce it, and holding various responsibilities in product and marketing. And as I mentioned, he is right now with the Swedish startup which is called Kitab Swati. Please welcome Aymane to the stage. Next up, we have Sepehr Hosseini, who is a marketing automation master at Alibaba Travels in Iran. He has over 10 years of experience in marketing automation for SaaS, OT enterprises, and also in companies which are based out of Silicon Valley, Washington DC, and now he's focused in Iran, as a market. He's a professional with full stack development of backend services, with Node.js, Express, MongoDB, and various other, and is also a growth hacker. So, excited to have him on board. Sepehr, can you please come on to the stage? Thanks so much. Next up, we have Albert Diaz, who is the SVP and Chief Product and Chief Technology Officer at Sepehr. I'm sure in UAE, I'm sure you guys have heard of Sepehr, and also you must have used Sepehr. So Albert built the UAE's first full-service travel e-commerce website in 2008, and was a pioneering SaaS-based corporate travel tech product in 2018. He has led digital products and technology and marketing over a career spanning 16 years. He is passionate about innovation and has previously delivered award-winning digital experiences for companies such as Emirates, Hilton, Mercedes-Benz, and Showtime also. So please welcome Albert Diaz. So like I said, we have a fairly exciting panel discussion in front of you. And are you guys excited about this panel? Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, I just wanted to understand, you spoke a lot about customer cohorts. We spoke a lot about identifying the right customer, identifying the right segments, right? But most of the times I feel that we are very disconnected from ground realities, right? We look at data and sometimes miss out the emotional connect or miss out the person behind the number, right? So could you guys share some light in terms of how do you identify who's the ideal customer for you, or how do you identify the ideal customer journey, and how do you ensure that as many people as possible are following that journey? Mr. Hamad, I will start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the challenges of working in MENA, because if you were working in Europe or if you were working in States or India, the markets are to a degree homogeneous, or the customers are homogeneous. I mean, you could find big segments. You're operating in a single market, at least there will be a few big unifiers. Language will be the same, I mean, in States and UK, etc. I mean, you will have people who probably have the same religion, same values, etc. Here we are talking about, I'm sure all of us who run regional businesses, 20, 25 markets, markets that have different GDP, different, customs, it's here are challenging. That's where you need to push yourself and try and identify the customer segments that are most relevant to you. Try to be focused as a product, as an organization, on segments that will deliver the most amount of value to you, whether that comes in the form of lifetime value or whatever your company's matrices will be. In our case, since we are a digital business, we try through our own data, which could be sociographic, and all of that, plus behavioral data, to stitch it together and try and develop a view of who are the customers that we are trying to attract. And then, that is one side. And then, obviously, what you try to do is go beyond the data that we have and blend it with the data with some of the partners, like social media platforms would have, as well as to enrich it through the research that we do. So it's quite I would say a detailed process. And you need to update that very frequently. The beauty of marketing now is that if you were trying to find lookalikes, you can upload the data from your own, customers' data on weekly basis, every other 2 weeks. And try and find the right segments for you. These segments evolve very, very frequently. So it's quite a detailed exercise, but an exciting one.
Sure. Thank you so much for Hamad. So Albert, I would like to pass on the mic to you. And was wondering, how does it work for, let's say, something in a travel segment, right, where the requirement is maybe better defined, but at the same time the segments are a lot more fragmented, possibly, right? So how does it work for somebody in the travel segment?
Travel is one of those things where it's very hard to figure out what people want at any point in time. Hamad just touched upon how this market is so diverse and people have so many different backgrounds, so many different aspirations. But I kind of represent two sides of the travel industry. On one side, where people know us as being a leisure business, the other side, the actual really large amount of our business is in business travel today. And just to kind of illustrate how sometimes size can belie complexity. When I started moving our focus away from leisure travel, which what people know as business travel, we changed from dealing with millions of people and having to put them into cohorts and understand them by hypothetical personas and so on and so forth, through to thousands of customers, where we were literally picking up names, one-on-one, and literally meet these people face to face, shake hands. We got fantastic. Right? For the first time, I got not a persona, but I got a person. I actually know this person. I can segment them into 5 groups of customers. Life's going to be easy. It wasn't. And the reality was that the demands were harder, and people asked for more. And I don't think there's ever really the perfect way of segmenting customers. I think what we've come to realize in the last 2 years is that rather than trying to apply our rules, our knowledge, our understanding of what we think these people will fit into, we've turned to techniques that are more common in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I hate to use the word because they can go in a different tangent, but I'm talking techniques in terms of embracing people for how they behave without being judgmental, without having your preconceived notions of what they want, what they might want, what that particular persona might respond to. We let the data speak to us. And that's what we've come to realize, that there's just no other way of doing it in travel. Whether you're dealing with a small number of thousands of customers or millions of customers, we let the data speak to us. And we let people's behavior, at the end of the day, determine the cohorts to sit into, how they're aggregated in those, if you will. And so we let that do its work on its own. So today we let go in a lot of ways of trying to define the process, but letting the process define itself and responding automatically to each of those segments by what they told us their behavior works best for them. As a simple example, whether it's lead time to travel, whether it's types of destinations, types of price points, and what we let the systems determine those today automatically.
That's very interesting, Albert. But one follow-up question that I have, to Sepehr is that a lot of data or a lot of the process that you talk about will tell you the what But how do you identify the why behind it, right? So why are customers searching for only 2 days before the travel journey and not 1 week before that, right? How do you really get to the depth of what is the motivation that's driving the customer behavior, right? So maybe Sepehr, I'll target this to you, right? So if you could shed some light on that.
I use this one.
That's a great question. I think the most important thing, as you just mentioned, it was the data mining part of it. I think as we go through data mining, a lot of stuff is just coming to us and coming naturally, but we need our experts in data mining to tell us, marketers, that what's best for us, you know. And of course there are some tools that we can use to analyze and know, but there is no other way of knowing these things in nature because they're nature data. So data mining is definitely needed. I don't know if a lot of marketing automation tools that are trying to basically focus on machine learning right now have something to say about this, because I don't feel that the products are not like mature yet in that level, but I would like to see more, definitely. In terms of what we do to understand, I think we are doing a good job at knowing our customers from the top of the funnel. When they come, if they are registered to our service from, let's say, a certain channel, and they're coming, and we know that they've clicked, let's say, on an advertisement, they're coming to register to our service, we would know their need. But most of the needs that we would want to know is from our customers are already, buying stuff from us, whether it's tour, whether it's a domestic flight, whether it's an internal flight. They are purchasing that in a periodic, let's say, timestamp. And if we can understand that timestamp, if we can understand that the frequency of their buying, each user, then they will become, when they go into the course, and they will become the customers that we have a lot of intelligence from them, and how we can market to them is really easy.
Sure. So I think to summarize what you're saying is that let's look beyond the transaction data and let's look at all the touch points that the customer has to get a better understanding about the customer.
Definitely.
Right.
We would definitely want to focus on each level of the funnel and the time that that we think they would need to spend on each of the levels of our funnel, and then optimize on those.
So which leads me to Aymane here is like I mentioned, is the head of product and growth at Kitab-Swati, which is an audiobook company, right? So inherently, because of the industry, there is a lot additional data points that you get that typical e-commerce companies don't get, right? For example, at what speed is the customer listening to, or what time of the day, or what kind of content. So how does that change your perception about customer segments or about customer engagement?
Definitely, yeah. So that's also our business model is based on subscriptions, so it's a little bit different from e-commerce, where you aspire to get the user to convert for that specific action, and then you try to get the user to do that again. So at Kitab-Swati, we started from looking into the data basically, and we tried to segment our users based on a very simple model called the RFM, which stands for recency, frequency, and monetization. But we focused on the frequency part. We wanted to understand who are our power users and what they're doing. So we selected a critical event that we called specific action that we think that it's the critical action that a user needs to do on our product. And then we drew what we call we tried to find the smiling curve. So smiling curve is, you have on the y-axis, or to get technical, but on the y-axis you get the number of times a user has done an action, and then, that's the number of users, and on the x-axis you get the number of times a user has done. So you get a lot of users has done this action only once, and then you have twice, third, and then you get the curve to start smiling at let's say +6 times. And that's actually our power users. So when we identify the right frequency for our power users, these are the users that we need to build a funnel or a user journey to bring the user from a new user to exactly to be a power user in that sense. So once we figured out these users, we just extracted them. So we passed to the next level of understanding who are these users. So we basically just extracted these users, and then we invited them for interviews. We send them surveys, etc. So to acquire more personal traits of these users. So just sharing the experience at Kitab Sauti, we found a lot of bias because a lot of these users are already bookworms, so they're already interested in books. They read a lot of books in real life. So we isolated that. We didn't want because that's the market. You can't change the market to be bookworm, but we can change our product, to showcase the value that Kitab Sauti is bringing, and then you just introduce it to all the users. So that was kind of the path that we took. It was a little bit, scientific path, but then you just get to know your users on their personal traits, and then we built our personas that helped us in our marketing acquisitions and our messaging, and we built our brand around the persona, our users' persona.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
If I could add one thing though, because one needs to, as a marketeer, in e-commerce companies, or in other companies where business is driven by data, what you need to balance, and I always say this, and I might sound old-fashioned, but you need to balance the data that you are seeing from the activity on your platforms, on your businesses, with actually, to your point, going to the whys. Why are people doing that? You might see what is happening, but you need to enrich that with actually talking to them.
Exactly.
And that's very, very important as well. No matter which industry you are in, you see a lot of what is happening, but you will not have a 360 degrees view unless you talk to your customers directly and understand what was the motivation behind an action. So why is somebody reading 3 books a month versus somebody else who might on so many other matrices or so many other ways might look exactly the similar person, but reads 3 books a year. Right? So, it is important to balance data and the basic techniques of research to get insights into what goes on into their mind.
But all valid points. But I think Aman said you touched upon a very important point, which is identifying the critical point or the critical engagement post which that significantly impacts the retention of that particular customer.
Exactly.
So, Hamad, do you also see something similar in your category, in your space? And how is it different from, let's say, travel or audiobooks?
Sure. So a few things. I think the two of us come from a business space that is subscription-driven. So in subscription-driven space, actually the funnel of conversion or the funnel through which the customers go traditionally is slightly different and slightly longer, right? So you are doing prospecting. You want people to come in and try your product. So you have to, first of all, make sense as a brand at that point. Then after the trial of 30 days, 7 days, or whatever it is over, you want them to subscribe. So again, they have to take another action. And then once they have subscribed, you want them to be consuming the product at a higher frequency, so that they see the value in the product, and then stay on with you, because then they have a chance to sort of disconnect your service every week or every month. So you have to, as a brand, win at every point of those funnels, of that funnel. And similar to what you said, we are also chasing the subscribers. Once they have subscribed, who would be consuming us for at least 1 hour, 1.5 hours every day. There is a golden rule in our industry that if someone is not consuming your product for 20 hours a week, then the chances, their churn propensity is very, very high. And through all the marketing that we have, we have to sort of like target that on retaining the people by ensuring that they are constantly consuming content. So yeah, it's quite a long funnel, and at every point in the funnel, you have to take certain actions as marketeers to ensure that people convert, they stay with you, they keep enjoying your product, and the lifetime value is optimized.
Sure. So yeah, I mean in content space it is easier to push content, right? Because you have so much and then you can build science upon what content would work for that customer. And irrespective of whether the customer has need or not, it always, it's always relevant to the customer. But Albert, coming to travel, right? I mean, even if you push, let's say you give me a ticket to, France for $500, I'm not going to go because I don't have the need, or I don't need, or maybe I don't need to do that, right? So how does it work in travel? How do you identify what are the churn parameters? How do you reduce churn? And how do you still keep an engaged and loyal customer?
I think there's nothing about this with that.
No.
That's
right. I mean, oh, that's good. Okay, I was going to scream. That was bad. I think there's nothing. Sorry. Yeah, this is good enough, right? Anyone who can't hear me?
Albert, you can maybe take this.
Thank you.
I can do 3 of them.
I think one of mine is good.
I mean, look, there's nothing natural about retention in the leisure travel space. And I think you come from a market where you're seeing a dogfight on the ground and it's intense. And so there's really no amount of science you can apply to a lot of the players and a lot of the verticals in travel today, because there is such a fight with so much venture capital behind players. When you enter the industry, you come up with this utopian ideal that I will come into the industry and I'll get a couple months. Sorry, that right? Okay, good. So you come into the industry with this utopian ideal, right? I'm going to acquire customers aggressively today, and they will stay with me for the next 5 years, and my retention is going to be 70%, 80%. And lo and behold, someone comes into the market with that same dream and ups your offer by 20%, and someone comes in and follows it at 20% more. The point I'm coming to is there's nothing natural about competition in travel. I think we've destroyed retention for ourselves, destroyed loyalty for ourselves in this marketplace. When you look at the industries that the two of you gentlemen are from, I think you've got a much more natural marketplace that you're in that no one's willing to cannibalize the other's customers as, I guess, aggressively. And so, what we focus on.
Grass, I must say, is always greener on the other side.
Sure, it is. I guess it's possible.
It's always a Red Sea.
Indeed, and that's quite possible too. I may not know well enough of who's kind of fighting your battles over there. But I think that in travel, what we've come to focus on instead is delight. And I think that if you look at experiences in travel, people build more loyalty with people who serve them travel experiences based on delight. I think once you tick that box, you've won something very, very important that asks that an offer, a coupon can't disrupt. 2, I think in upping the ante when something goes wrong, that goes beyond delight. I think you want someone for life. It doesn't matter what coupons we've seen in the industry thrown at people. Customers who've come to us with a problem in a dire situation. And by the way, if I may, these are human things. This is not data speaking. This is natural urge to do something good. And so we find that this works really well in travel in a lot of ways. I'm sure that we will have coupons and competition and things going on out there, and that will always, drive our new customer acquisition. But loyalty and retention, I think these are the 2 things we found work very well for us. Delight in products. So I'm a product guy, I'm skewed in that particular view. And I think in upping the ante when something goes wrong from a service perspective. And these 2, at the end of the day, are big for us because we don't fly planes, we don't drive cars, we don't make beds. So these are at the heart of what we do.
Got it. And I completely, agree and align with what you're saying, Albert, because I've also been part of the travel industry and I understand, where that is coming from. But one of the concerns or one of the issues that I usually had was there are certain things that are out of your control, right? You can't control. Let's say I used to be part of a company called Red Bus, which does bus ticketing aggregation in India, and you can't control how the bus driver talks to you, right? But that was a very high churn indicator, right? So, Sepehr, the question to me and to Albert as well is how do you control for those parameters which are not in your control but still has an impact on your churn?
Well, that's a great question. We don't have control over the experience itself, but we have control over the time that a person buys a product from a travel company to the time that they actually use that product. Let's say it's a ticket, let's say an international ticket. Now, when you buy that ticket and we still, as a business, we have time until the person is gonna, catch the flight. Even we can, try to message them, before they go on board the flight. So we have still some opportunities to reach out to them, make the experience better for them. But when they use the service, then I think it's even better for us not to interrupt that, and then after they end the experience, we'll go back to them, asking their feedback and telling them how can we better your experience. How can we make this experience a lot more comfortable for you? And that's the way we show a better face of our business to them. Instead of trying to solve something that is not in your control, then you can solve another problem and put a cap on that. And I think, as Albert said, it's really, really important that we know our customers in a way that in travel business, it's definitely the customer that buys your product doesn't need your product again the day after. So it's really important for us to basically know when to message them, when to communicate to them, and communicate to them in certain ways, different ways. Let's say a nurturing program should be a lot different than your let's say messages that you send to them before they go on board or they buy something from you. They should have a different, totally different tone in terms of branding, in terms of everything. And well, in Alibaba Travels, we do a lot of stuff in terms of offline marketing. That offline marketing, I can say, it has led to the Alibaba Travels company becoming the #1 company in Iran for selling travel tickets. I think we've done a great job in offline advertising, billboards especially, those kind of things. It will stick actually the brand into the customer's mind. And if you try to basically build upon that and follow periodically in a good manner with the customer until they use the service, and after they use the service, you get the feedback from them. I think that's the best combination.
Sorry to, I know you got an ominous ticker going there, so I'm going to take all of 30 seconds. Because I didn't answer your original question, and that was about how do we, how do we preempt this sort of intent for when to travel? And when you speak about hyper-personalization over here, I think data platforms play an incredible role in this. So we work with partners like Sojourn, for example, who have an incredible, insight into when people have an intent to travel and where they're traveling, and that's very useful for us in some of acquisition campaigns. There are other DMPs out there, the likes of Bluekai, who kind of know how old my kids are right now from my search behavior on the internet. And so there are platforms out there that give us cues and insights of what people's intent are. I'll be honest, we've not used that in our product yet, but it is something we certainly aspire to use very, very soon.
Fantastic, sounds good. But a couple of things that you guys touched upon. Sepehr, you spoke about feedback collection, right, which is obviously very important. And Albert, you spoke about looking at other signals apart from the product itself to gain insight, right? So moving on to Aymane, right? So do we have to rely on customers saying how the customer's service experience was, or is there any other signals that you can use to build on top of that to say every customer has X level of service?
Sure. So I think the first thing is we need to define what's a good customer experience and how we can measure it. And I think in our problem space, retention is one of the key metrics that defines a really good customer experience. When we're speaking about retention, we need to do two main things. The first one is to identify the retention and define it, because there are a lot of definitions of retentions. And
so sorry, just to interrupt. So how do you define retention? Or
exactly, yeah. So at Kitab Sawti, we use two definitions of retention. We have the unbounded retention, and we have the end day retention. So end day retention means if a user comes on Sunday, if he doesn't come next week on Sunday, then he's churned, right? And for the unbounded retention, it means if the user comes Sunday or Monday or Tuesday until the next Sunday, then he's retained. So these are the two retention definitions that we are setting for Kitab Sawti. But more importantly, we need to define, or we need to set the expectations of retentions. Not every business is retentive as Facebook, right? Not every business should expect 70% retention on day one. So we need to understand our business. Does it make sense for users to retain every day, to come every day to do that action? Or we need to set some expectations that, okay, for audiobooks, I think it's natural for users to come back to listen for on our platform every 3 days, and that's an expectation, and then you need to work towards that, because it's unrealistic to go and say, I need users to return every day on my platform. You might have these kind of users. They're crazy users, but they're not scalable. You cannot acquire millions of users like them. So, definition of retention and then setting expectations of retention depending on the business you're running. That's how we are, managing our retention, thus managing our customer experience as well.
Just to add another, and just to build on what you have just said, so customer experience, how is it being evolved? Our customer expectations, how they are evolving. So in our industry, for instance, we are, homegrown UAE startup, right? So we are in the SWOT category where there is a huge giant like Netflix, right? So Netflix launches certain features based on their insights, which nobody actually demanded or wanted, until 2 weeks back. But once somebody has experienced that, they immediately expect that a company, a regional startup, also implements that immediately on their service. So the point I'm trying to make is that customer expectations are evolving in different directions. Based on different things. Sometimes they would have experienced something on a competitor, and then they expect you to implement it. On the flick of a switch.
So I just wanted to add to that. So actually, its expectations not limited to the industry, but across the network, right? So for example, if I can track, I book a $10 cab or $2 cab, but I can track exactly where it is minute to minute. But if I buy a fridge from an offline store, I can't track it, right? And I imagine that, right? A fridge is like $1,000, $2,000, right? The expectation is set that irrespective of whatever is happening, the industry is still evolving, right? Which brings me to the next question, right? In terms of the ecosystem in, let's say, GCC and Middle East, right? I would say compared to other markets like India, Southeast Asia, India and Southeast Asia have evolved very differently than, let's say, US and Europe, right? Similarly, China has evolved in a very, very different, because of various reasons, right? How do you guys see this market growth, right? Is it going to be similar to the other markets, or are there any, intricacies that are different in this market?
Yeah, there are quite a few things that are very different in this part of the world. So I'll give you just one example from our industry, and I think, some of the other panelists can also probably relate to that. So, when you talk about e-commerce, when you talk about e-commerce in States, or in UK, people assume that, a big portion of their target segment would have credit cards. In this part of the world, in UAE or in certain other markets, people would have, credit card penetration would be quite decent. But if you go to a huge market like Saudi, the credit card penetration is like probably 25%. You go to another huge market from a, population perspective in the region, Egypt, the credit card penetration is probably 3 to 4%. You go to Morocco and Tunisia, it is probably 1% or less than 1%. So, there are certain unique things in this region that you have to address. So in our case, the way we, and by the way, in the region, our Star Space market share is higher than Netflix. And one of the reasons, or one of the insights that we had was that if people need to subscribe to our service, then credit card should not be the only mode of payment. So what we did was we had alignment with our integrations with 2021 telco partners, and provided telco billing or a direct DCB, we call it direct consumer billing, as one of the modes of payment for people. So again, coming back to the point that I made earlier, that sometimes these insights are very, very important, and they can make or break business for you. So in this market, this is one of the few markets where a local player has a higher market share than Amazon and Netflix, and that is based on this one very, very important insight that we had for our business.
That makes sense. So I think customer insight is probably the heart of everything that we do, right? Identifying insights. And we did touch upon that earlier, but again, passing on the mic to Albert. Do you see any, in this region, I think Musafir also has a large global presence, right? So in this specific region, do you see any different approaches to how people are building their businesses, or problem statements that are very unique to this statement?
So I can't really comment on how people approach their problem statements differently in this market. What I can tell you is kind of how businesses operate in this region, some of the benefits of what we've seen, at least in this region. We've generally seen inherently more loyalty. I can't speak for all verticals, but I think in travel we've seen inherently more loyalty. And it's just perhaps the nature of the market, how people operate. We've seen inherently more loyalty. People have greater brand affinity in this market. It's perhaps just one of the things they've perhaps grown up with. Again, in travel we tend to see this. One of the other things we see as well is that people have very hard time changing mindsets. That switching is not very easy for a lot of customers over here. It somehow seems to be an obstacle. In other markets, it tends to be an easy thing. I won't try the service and switch, and try the service and switch. With travel, we see tendency that's not as much of a problem over here. What else can I think of? I guess it's really about it. These only two things I think that we've seen. In the markets we operate in, this is the thing that's unique perhaps in the Middle East.
Alright, I'm getting signals about time being up. I'm sure this conversation would go on forever if we continue. But thank you guys for such an engaging conversation. And with that, we open up the floor for some questions. If anybody has any questions targeted towards the panel or anybody in specific.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time. Each one of you have built incredible, inspirational businesses. One of the questions, I have a few, but in the interest of time, I won't ask too many. We can network outside. But Hamad, one question for you. Especially, given the challenges you were mentioning around payments being a problem. I think it's a common problem across all parts of the local subcontinent that we're working in. Is subscription, right, really now starting to pick up as a business model? And now, in terms of OTT, you have a certain view, but the user expectation and behavior for all subscription businesses is pretty much the same. In India, the challenges earlier were that there was no way to do subscription billing in the very first place for most businesses. Now, those building blocks are there, but is that a business model, a viable business model for more and more businesses to go that route? Other than yours is a very sort of obvious business in that sense to go the subscription route, but can a traditional e-commerce guy, can a traditional travel guy, a fintech guy could also think building on the lines of subscription as long as the plumbing layers are built out? Would love to hear your views.
Sure. So you see, it's a great question. But if we look at the media scene, how it has evolved in even MENA. There was a time when I started my career 25 years back in this region, and there were 1,500 free-to-air TV channels, right? Probably 10, 15, 20, 50 of those were the channels that people would watch. But then there were 1,450 other TV channels also, who were relying on advertising revenue to sustain themselves, right? Over the period, market has consolidated. Some of them have gone out of business and things like that. But there are a lot of TV channels which are funded by wealthy individuals with deep pockets, governments, etc., and all of that stuff. But in our industry, at least, people have realized that with the advertising dollars going down, subscription is the only way for people to for companies to be able to sustain themselves. So everybody is running towards that direction now. To answer your question, so this is industry specific. To answer your questions about traditional businesses trying to figure out a way where they could have a sustained stream of revenue, right? So we have a partner which was a normal traditional brick and mortar sort of a partner. They are an electronics retailer. What they did was they realized that with Amazon coming into the market, with e-commerce becoming more strong, what they need to do is they need to have some sort of a formula whereby they tie people in through some sort of a subscription, and then they give something of value back to the subscriber or subscribers or the people. So they have come up with a membership sort of program. I mean, you know, if you have the membership with that retailer, you get discounts on the products, you get free deliveries, you get certain products for free. So they have found a way of creating value. So I think that the question that you've asked is great. And I mean, you know, there are examples where if you think hard enough, and if you understand what are the consumer pain points that you can resolve in some sort of a way, by having some sort of a subscription, then it could be a formula that could be successful. We have experience with one of our partners, as I said, I mean, you know, who has done that very, very well. And they have been able to generate revenue out of it, lock consumers in, increase the sort of like basket size from the same subscriber. So it can be done.
Sure.
It can definitely be done.
Okay.
Just to chime in on that one, I think we've been experimenting with subscription-based, SaaS-based billing for our business travel service for about the last 6 months. The first 3 months were really hard because I think we had a hard time nailing down what that real value prop was. In a lot of cases, what we began in the beginning was just trying to remove the perception that our consumers, our businesses had of us as being a commoditized service. And so we want to move away from that to a very clear value prop of a software-based solution of how it could improve your business travel X. It was difficult in the first 3 months because it didn't strike us that we needed to really put something of greater value on the table. And so what we've begun experimenting with in the last 3 months is identifying services like, for example, built-in insurance, travel insurance, built-in transfers, and that's seen more positive reception. So once businesses have kind of seen that as there's a value, a tangible value prop, it's opened their eyes, it's opened their willingness up to consider it. But I'll admit, it's still hard. I mean, for an industry that operates on a transactional basis, almost around the world, there are these few pockets of businesses challenging it. It's hard, but definitely, I think value prop's key.
Yeah, but I mean, even in the travel segment, I mean, you know, the concept of timeshare, for instance. I mean, you know, it's another way of locking people in. You know, that's there, and that has been there for so many years. And not only, you know, now big hotel chains are offering timeshare on rooms, not only on you know, apartments and different, I mean, you know, type of properties. So, I mean, again, coming back to the point that, I mean, you know, you need to understand what is a customer pain point. Is there something, to your point, is there a value that I can bring to the table if I have to lock them in and ask them to spend something, I mean, you know, for a longer period of time? People are willing to do that. I mean, you know, but you have to give them something back of value. You know, that's the formula to
Right.
triple it.
Fair point, fair point. I know we do have a lot of questions, but in the interest of time, we'll have to. Just a quick show of hands. In the audience, anybody has adapted to a subscription platform as a value add on top of what the actual business model is in your business? Charging users a subscription fee to offer some value in return alongside, you know, selling your products and services. Anybody has done that? Anybody whose business does that? Oh, okay, not too many. It's been very tough because I have not seen the adoption take on. And you know, India is a very funny market, very price conscious, but was highlighting. Switches loyalty, switches services for you know, small value. So it may not be the right market also to sort of, you know, build something like that. But we'd love to see, and I'm gonna, you know, talk to you guys to actually figure this out. This is one big area of interest for a lot of businesses, you know, that I generally interact with. But no, I found this very useful and engaging. Thank you guys. Thank you, gents.
I mean, one last comment, if I could add, you know, on India specifically, for instance, how successful India as a market has been in sort of like converting, you know, huge assets, I mean, you know, into paying something on a monthly basis, but based on real value, right? So, you know, the way media industry has evolved, I mean, you know, again, you used to have free-to-air TV channels, then the company, I mean, you know, industry evolved towards having smaller cable networks, which were offering analog, I mean, you know, channels, etc. And then came big, I mean, you know, pay TV companies, right? And those pay TV companies, they had a very clear value proposition that, okay, we will offer a lot of content in HD, right? They kept the subscription price, I mean, you know, at 10% or 15% premium to what the analog, I mean, you know, cable providers are providing, and then people graduated. So there was a time, I mean, you know, still, if you see globally the number of subscribers for pay TV operators, you will see these big operators like DirecTV and all of that from US, And then as a single market, you would see India as a market which has millions of subscribers, right? So in terms of subscriber numbers, huge numbers, right? And then India was one of those markets where from 0 to 1 million subscribers, media company was the fastest to go from 0 to 1 million subscribers, fastest in the world, right? So India is a very cost-conscious market. I mean, the GDP is not that very huge. I mean, compared to Europe or certain other markets, but still, companies have been able to create value, and on the back of that, drive the subscription business. So now telcos, some of the telcos are doing great work where they are giving, because they understand that they make money out of broadband, they are giving content for free so that people consume broadband to watch content.
We work with Alt Balaji, which works with telcos.
Exactly. So I think if you look at, if you want to understand subscription or your business into that, if you just see the case studies from the media industries in India, that in itself will be a very, very good case study to learn from.
So much, Hamad. Thank you so much, Aymane. Thank you so much, Sepehr. Albert. For a brilliant session. I think each one of you are doing great in what you do, and we had some lovely insights.